The gate beneath the ash, the old border gate, was buried under 6 meters of slag and silence. It used to be a trade tunnel, before the isolation mandate turned our world into a sealed vault. You could still see traces of the past if you looked closely: a half-crushed sign reading Sector Bridge 7, an ancient loading frame twisted like a spider's carcass, fossilized tires from evac shuttles that never launched. Jeren crouched near the wall and ran his fingers over a faded emblem, half-burned but still visible, a symbol I hadn't seen in years. The Phoenix Arc. This was a rebel drop point, I said. Jeren nodded. Back when the Ark still believed we could breach the dome. Kaeli knelt beside the gate's ruined interface. Her breathing was steady, but her eyes kept flicking side to side like she was hearing echoes no one else could. What's behind here? She asked. Jeren looked at me first, then at her. The way out. We set up a perimeter inside the old freight chamber. Kaeli started scanning the remains of the comm panel. I patched into the local grid line to check for surveillance. Jeren pried open a sealed crate marked Civex, Phase 2. Inside were rations, emergency masks, and something else, a child's journal. He held it up, confused. Someone lived here after the closure. More than one, Kaeli whispered. I can feel it. Their fears still in the walls. Before I could ask what she meant, her hands went stiff. She stood suddenly, eyes wide. There's something outside the grid. She went silent, then her voice changed, not deeper. Not louder. Just older. I am the echo of Astra, she said. I see you, Kaeli. I see what you've become. Jeren dropped the journal. I stood between them. Who the hell is this? I asked. Kaeli's mouth moved, but the words weren't hers. A fragment. A fallback. A last breath caught in static. We were never meant to be whole again. But you, Kaeli, you woke us. Static crackled from the gate's ruined interface. And then it activated. Lines of code scrolled fast, faster than I could follow. The seal on the gate hissed, and the reinforced locks began to grind open. Kaeli gasped and fell to her knees. Jeren caught her. She's burning up, he said. That voice, it's using her like a conduit. I pulled the shock rod from my belt and pressed it to the ground, generating a localized surge field to break the signal. Kaeli shuddered, and went still. Then she looked up at me. Just her this time. She's awake now, Kaeli whispered. And she knows where we are. The gate cracked open enough to let a man through. Beyond it, dust. Wind. Open air, and stars, not real ones. A projection dome maybe. A simulation. But something about it felt real, the kind of Rael you don't get in a sealed grid. We go now, Jeren said, but behind us, footsteps, not metallic, not drones, boots, Senya's guards, first 5. Then 10, and in the center. She wasn't wearing command robes this time, she wore something older. A mantle marked with the same symbol as the child's journal. A phoenix in eclipse. You've done well, Senya said softly, almost proud. You led her exactly where I needed. Jeren raised his weapon. Try it, she said. He hesitated. Senya smiled. You didn't think I'd come without insurance, did you? She raised her hand, and from the shadows behind her, 2 guards emerged. One of them was holding a child, but not just any child. Her eyes glowed faint white, just like Kaeli's. Kaeli stepped forward, trembling. That's not possible, she said. Senya's voice was smooth. She's your sister, Kaeli. The second prototype. Born in silence. Raised in loyalty. Unlike you. I froze, everything inside me pulled tight. Kaeli whispered, no. Senya smiled. You wanted the truth. This is it. You were never the only one. Just the first to break free. The second spark. We ran, through the gate. Into the dust. Into whatever lay beyond the grid's skeleton mouth. Behind us, shouts. Screams. The sharp crack of stun rounds firing through smoke. Kaeli was half dragging, half floating, her limbs barely moving, her breath ragged. Jeren had one arm wrapped around her waist, the other gripping his side, where a glancing shot had burned through his jacket. I led, scanning the ground, following the faint traces of ancient tram lines buried beneath centuries of wind and ash. We didn't speak. Not yet. Words didn't matter until we knew we were clear. It wasn't until we crossed the third ridge that we dropped into a ravine and collapsed. Kaeli hit the ground first, coughing hard. Jeren fell beside her, clutching his ribs. I stayed standing, just barely. Eyes still locked on the path behind us, but no one came, no one followed, not yet. They let us go, Jeren gasped. That's the only reason we're still breathing. No, Kaeli said, her voice thin. She let me go. That wasn't a chase. It was a test. She sat up slowly, her hand trembling as she wiped dust from her cheek. She wanted to see if I'd run, Kaeli continued. If I'd choose myself over her. Over the grid. Over them. Jeren frowned. You mean the child? She nodded. I felt her. Before I saw her. We're not just sisters. We're halves of something older. Something the program buried. The grid called her awake. She's the second spark. And Senya, she wants to fuse us. Rebuild whatever they started back when hybrids were weapons. I looked at Kaeli. You said the other voice called itself the Echo of Astra. What is that? Kaeli hesitated. I don't know. Not fully. But. It's ancient. Not human. A memory left behind by whatever built the first interface. It used the same base tech. Buried code. Sentience like frost, quiet until someone breathes warm enough to wake it. She looked up at me then. I was the warmth, Rael. I woke it. We spent the next hours setting up a crude shelter beneath a collapsed tram bridge. There were fragments of old tech embedded in the walls, pre-isolation wiring, solar plates so degraded they looked like fossilized leaves. Jeren found a collapsed relay node and used its casing to build a signal shield. Kaeli slept, curled around a broken console like it might protect her. I stood watch. The air beyond the grid wasn't like the air inside. It moved, it breathed, and when I looked really up, I saw stars. Real ones, not a dome. Not a projection, actual stars, scattered and silent, hanging in a sky that hadn't been seen in generations. Something broke in my chest, not from fear, from hope, from the realization that this, the world beyond the dome, still existed. Kaeli woke just before dawn. She sat up, blinking slowly. She's close, she whispered. Who? I asked. My sister. She's tracking me. Not to kill me. To join me. But she doesn't understand what she is. Jeren groaned from the far corner. We barely understand what you are. Kaeli didn't argue. Instead, she touched the old node casing beside her and let her fingers rest on the faded Phoenix arc symbol burned into it. She'll come, Rael. And when she does. I need you to promise something. I didn't answer right away. I don't make promises anymore, I said. You need to make this one, she said, eyes suddenly sharp. If I turn, if I lose myself, don't save me. Stop me. I stared at her. At the girl who wasn't quite a girl anymore. The one who had shattered drones with a thought. Who had spoken with her own voice and a voice older than the grid, Kaeli. Promise me. My throat felt dry. I nodded once. I promise. She smiled, and somewhere, far in the distance, the wind shifted. A figure stood on the horizon, too small to see clearly, but close enough to feel. She was coming, and the second spark was no longer sleeping. The voice beneath the dust. We found her at the edge of the ruins, not standing. Not hiding, waiting. The child, Kaeli's sister, sat in the center of a buried interface hub, half swallowed by sand and cracked stone. The old chamber had collapsed long ago, leaving jagged ribs of metal piercing the air like broken teeth. Sunlight spilled in through a fractured dome, catching on the dust as it swirled like golden ash. She didn't move when we approached, didn't flinch when Kaeli stepped into the circle. The girl looked maybe 9. Pale, almost translucent skin. Eyes like copper glass, reflective and unreadable. She wore a faded pressure tunic with half-melted seams, marked with the same Phoenix arc logo we'd found earlier. Her fingers traced symbols into the dirt. Not random. Patterns. The same ones Kaeli had used to send the first pulse. Is that really her? Jeren asked quietly, watching from the ridge above. Kaeli didn't answer. She crouched just a few feet from the child and whispered, "Do you know me?" The girl looked up, and smiled. "I know your echo," she said. Her voice was soft but strange, delayed, almost layered, like someone whispering beneath her breath. Kaeli's eyes flicked to me. "She's linked." Link to what? I asked. To it, the girl said. To the voice beneath. You woke it. The child raised one hand, and the air around her shimmered. We weren't alone, the old hub still held power, low, buried deep, but still humming. I felt it beneath my boots. A quiet pull, like gravity tipped the wrong way. She's sinking, Kaeli muttered. To me. To the same code that lives in both of us. Jeren stepped closer, his weapon lowered but not holstered. We need to be careful. Senya's not going to let this play out quietly. Kaeli nodded slowly. I know. That's why we need to finish this before she gets here. The child stood. I'm not a weapon, she said softly, but the ground beneath her trembled. I was made to end the cycle. You were made to choose. Kaeli stared at her. Choose what? But the child didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her tunic and pulled out a small data core. It looked ancient, scratched, heat-warped, but still blinking with a dull orange light. She handed it to Kaeli. When you're ready, she said. You'll understand what they did to us. Then her eyes snapped to the east. They're coming. We all turned. The dust on the horizon was rising, fast and thick. No lights. No engines, just movement. Jeren's voice was tight. Drones? No, I said. Kaeli squinted into the haze. Worse. What came over the ridge wasn't a drone patrol, it was memory, a storm of thought ghosts, people we knew, people we'd lost, flickering in and out of the air like broken holograms. Some were still. Some whispered. Some screamed. Jeren's hand trembled. That's my mother, he whispered. She's been dead for 10 years. Senya's voice rippled through the static. You wanted truth, Rael. Here it is. All your grief. All your sins. I've weaponized your past. Let's see if your present survives it. Kaeli stumbled. No. She's using Project Requiem. What is that? I shouted. It's not tech, she said. It's us. They harvested memory during hybrid incubation. Built simulacrums. Echoes. She's turned them into a psychological firewall. The child grabbed my arm, her tiny hand cold and strong. You have to burn the signal, she said. At the root. Find the original relay. It's under the old calm vault. Jeren blinked. The one beneath Arc Delta. I nodded. That's suicide, he said. No, I said, staring at the ghosts marching toward us. That's the only way we end this. As the echoes closed in, Kaeli and her sister knelt side by side. They touched palms, and the air snapped, lit by a corona of light so sharp it split the noise around us into silence. A signal burst out from their fusion. Old code. Pure code. Not corrupted. Not twisted, real. Something in the false memories screamed and fell apart. We didn't wait to see the rest. We ran for the vault. And behind us, the sky cracked open, not with thunder, but with voices, thousands of them, calling Kaeli's name, calling mine. The vault below, the entrance was half buried in melted alloy and concrete bones. We tore through the debris with our hands, prying open the scorched remains of a maintenance hatch just wide enough to slide through. The old calm vault, Arc Delta's spinal relay, hadn't seen light in decades. Everything down there still hummed. We dropped into the dark. The corridor smelled of wet copper and something older, like burned memory. The walls were veined with old fiber thread, pulsing faintly. Light flickered from motion sensors that no longer blinked for humans. This wasn't built for us, Jeren muttered. Feels like we're inside something's throat. Kaeli didn't speak. She moved ahead of us, silent and focused, hand on the small core her sister had given her. The child hadn't followed us. She said she'd draw off the ghosts, scatter them. We didn't argue. 100 steps in, we reached the vault door. It was massive, polyalloy fused with prayer glyphs etched into every surface. Old faith, weaponized. A biometric ring pulsed on the center plate. Kaeli pressed her hand to it. The door hissed open. The relay room inside was alive, not figuratively. Not poetic, alive. Strands of organic tech grew along the walls, threading through servers like veins. In the center of the chamber, the signal relay hovered, suspended in a magnetic web, rotating slowly, glowing a dull violet. Above it, a single chair hung in a vertical cradle, restraints open, memory feeds waiting. I knew that chair, I'd seen it in the files, the first hybrid interface. Kaeli approached slowly. This is where they first tuned me, she whispered. Before I ever woke up. Jeren circled the edge, eyes scanning the feed banks. This isn't just transmitting data. It's rewriting it. Memories, directives. People. I touched the side wall, smooth, warm. What is this place really? Kaeli turned toward me, her face pale. This is where they edited you, Rael. My blood ran cold. What? She tapped one of the feed clusters, and a projection snapped to life, a memory vault. It showed me, years younger, strapped into the chair. Eyes open. Mind cracked wide. Voices around me, scientists, engineers. Senya, you were too loyal, Kaeli said. Too dangerous to their plans. They couldn't kill you. So they changed you. Cut pieces out. Buried them. Jeren swallowed. This was during the fall of the Phoenix Arc, Kaeli nodded. They were already replacing truth with function. I stared at my younger self, eyes dead, body limp. It wasn't just memory loss. They'd hollowed me. I don't remember this, I whispered. That's the point, she said softly. I felt like I was falling. Kaeli stepped to the relay, pulled the core from her belt, and slotted it into the main node. Immediately, the lights flared, sirens began to whisper. A voice, Senya's voice, spoke from the walls. You shouldn't have come here. Then the cradle chair snapped downward, and something moved inside it, a figure, thin, pale, shivering, still alive. No, not alive, preserved. My breath caught in my throat. Jeren. My brother, my real brother, not Jeren, not the version I grew up with after the rewrite, but the original, the one I'd forgotten. The one they'd erased. He opened his eyes slowly. Rael. He whispered. Jeren froze. What the hell is this? Kaeli's face turned hard. They cloned your brother to make Jeren. Used him to control you. Keep you stable. Jeren stepped back, shaken. That's not who I am. I turned to him. You didn't know. He was trembling. I don't even know what's real anymore. I nodded. Neither do I. The relay began to overload. Kaeli's core was burning through the safeguards. Jeren looked at me, half lucid. You have to end it, Rael. Burn it all. I pulled the shock trigger from my belt and stepped toward the cradle. What happens if I destroy the relay? I asked. Kaeli answered, voice steady. Then everything they built on lies comes crashing down. I looked at Jeren. He gave a single nod, and I fired. The cradle erupted, sparks. Light. Screams that weren't human. The relay fractured. Memory feeds ripped open. The vault began to collapse, metal groaning like a dying beast. Kaeli grabbed my arm. We have to go, now. We carried Jeren between us as we ran. Behind us, the core ruptured, a pulse of truth rippled out, shattering every false thread Senya had ever sown, and somewhere above us, the sky began to return, the ghost signal. The sky above Grid 9 West shimmered with static. Not the soft shimmer of malfunctioning lights or atmospheric drift, but the sharp, shredded kind. As if something massive had tried to peel back the clouds and scream through the hole. They heard it in every corridor, a low-frequency whine, embedded with buried code, a ghost signal. We surfaced into the access tunnels an hour before sunrise. Kaeli staggered first, breathing hard. Her hands trembled like something inside her was shorting out. Jeren leaned on me, barely conscious, skin clammy and pale. Jeren kept ahead, rifle raised, face drawn. No one spoke until we reached the transit platform, long abandoned. There, Kaeli collapsed. I caught her just before her head hit the floor. Her skin was burning. The core she'd used to overload the relay was fused to her belt, still smoldering. She's burning out, I said. Jeren winced. That core. It was linked to her lifeline. It's like reverse feeding a neural net through its own blood. That means something to you? Jeren asked, eyes scanning the dark. Jeren managed a broken smile. It means she gave too much. Kaeli's eyes flickered open, the voice. She whispered. It's louder now. It's not just one anymore. I looked down. Who do you hear? She didn't answer right away. Then, the others. The ones like me. They're waking up. Suddenly, a clank echoed from the far side of the tunnel. Jeren raised his weapon. They found us. A moment later, they emerged, not drones, not soldiers, worse, the reclaimed, twisted survivors from early hybrid trials, half living, half buried in grid code. They moved like smoke in meat form, eyes glowing with command line code. Some had no mouths. Others had too many, Kaeli gasped. They're not supposed to be outside containment. Jeren grabbed my arm, eyes wild. They can't be. They didn't speak, they just advanced. Jeren fired first, burst rounds echoing, but they moved around the bullets like gravity didn't apply. One lunged at him, claws raised, but Jeren stepped between them and raised his palm. A flare of violet light, the creature screamed, part digital, part animal, and disintegrated into ash and signal noise. I stared at him. You can do that? Jeren nodded, grim. They left a kill switch in us. I just remembered mine. Kaeli coughed, struggling to rise. They're coming because of what we unlocked. The relay didn't just destroy the edits, it broadcast the original truth. Jeren helped her up. So this is what Senya's afraid of. Not just exposure. Uprising. No, Kaeli said. Awakening. More reclaimed appeared, flooding the platform from both sides. I gripped my weapon, heart pounding. We can't win this. Jeren turned to me. There's a failsafe. One last broadcast, deep code. Your voice, Rael. Your original signal. The one they spliced out. We get to the old Vox core, plug it in. And we overwrite her entire protocol stack. How do you know this? Jeren asked. Jeren didn't blink, because I helped build it. Before they locked me away. Kaeli grabbed my sleeve. If we do this, we don't just end the grid. We end her. And I knew what she meant, Senya. Her mind ran through every feed in the system. Every drone. Every sector. Every whisper. She was the ghost in the machine, and this? This was her world. To destroy her. I'd have to destroy what was left of myself. I closed my eyes, saw the little boy I used to be. He didn't look scared anymore, he looked ready. Then let's finish it. We moved, not as rebels, not as fugitives, but as something they never planned for, the memory they couldn't delete, the truth they couldn't cage, and as we vanished into the tunnels, the signal followed us, not to stop us, but to watch. The Vox core, the air in the tunnels grew colder, thinner, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Kaeli's steps were uneven, her breath shallow, but her eyes, those ancient eyes, burned brighter than any light we'd seen. Jeren's grip on his rifle tightened. Jeren's hand hovered near a concealed panel on his arm, fingers twitching, ready, and I felt the weight of every secret I'd ever kept, every lie buried in the data, pressing down on me. We reached the Vox core's entrance, an archway of cracked fiber optic cables and flickering hollow runes that whispered forgotten code. Here, Jeren said. The cradle of memory. The heart of Senya's power. The chamber inside was a cathedral of circuitry and light, walls alive with flowing data streams, cascading like waterfalls of pure code. In the center stood the Vox tower, an obelisk pulsating with raw energy, its core a swirling storm of ones and zeros. Suddenly, the light shifted. Shadows coalesced into a figure. Senya, no longer a ghost behind machines, she stepped forward, a towering silhouette of digital and flesh, her eyes cold circuits burning with calculation. So, Rael, she spoke, voice echoing through the core like a command line executed in space. You return to unmake what you helped create. I swallowed the lump in my throat. This ends now, Senya. No more lies. No more control. She smiled, cruel and infinite. Control is survival. You cannot live without it. Kaeli stepped beside me, her voice steady despite the pain etched on her face. We're more than your code, Senya. We're memory. We're choice. Senya's laughter rippled through the core, shaking the very data around us. Then show me your choice. Jeren moved to the console, sliding the ancient data crystal into place. Rael, it's your turn. Speak the truth, unlock the original broadcast. I took a breath deeper than I thought possible. Memories flooded back, the promises, the betrayals, the faces lost and loved, and then I spoke, words layered with years of silence, pain, and hope. the truth poured out, a wave of pure memory, raw and unfiltered, shattering Senya's web. Her form flickered, faltered. "You cannot erase me," she hissed. "I don't need to," I said, voice rising. "I just need to remind everyone what we once were. What we still can be." The core trembled, the grid lights flaring and dimming, and then, the silence. Kaeli collapsed, drained but alive. Jeren lowered his weapon, breathless. Terran smiled, weak but genuine, and I looked out into the darkened tunnels, knowing the fight was over, for now, but the story of memory, truth, and freedom had only just begun. The end of Book I, The Burned Sky Pact. Next book coming up. Thank you.